What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net. Cut! I am, of course, Andrew Marchek from Chicago, Illinois. Danny, as you can see here, we are no longer in the COASTER-net studios. We are now officially in the Raptor Universe studio.
The Raptor studio. Studio R.
Studio R, baby. So as you can see here, we got a brand new setup. All great stuff going on here. But Danny, tonight, this is what the fans have been clamoring for.
Have they?
No. This is what the people...
For us to finally do a show together for like the first time in 6 weeks. Andy, it's been forever since we've been here together. As many people know, I was in Europe for the first 2 weeks of August.
What?
Which is what we're going to start talking about here. You've been obviously buying a new house, so congratulations to you getting moved in there. You've been painting the Raptor Studios and getting the internet all set up, and we're finally ready to go. You were in Las Vegas for a time before that as well. Basically, to let you behind the scenes a little bit, we basically recorded Busch Gardens Williamsburg stuff when they made their announcement. And then Andy went to Vegas, and I went to Europe, and we barely talked for like 3 weeks. Just a little bit of heckling in the group chat while I was
the greatest 3 weeks of my life, too. By the way.
Right? How about it? And then, I came back, and of course, my internal time clock was messed up for about a week, and you were in the process of getting into the house, and then now you're in the house, and now you're settled. You've got the studio all set up. So we said, why don't we talk about that Europe trip that happened over almost a month ago now?
So the way we decided to do this here is we're going to break it up and just do reviews of parks, because I think that's what people want. Not so much looking at like overall lists or rundowns or whatever, but just to get a feel for you reviewing a certain, either one park if it's big enough or a group of parks if they're a little bit smaller. So I think we're going to start with a big one right here. And this is one that I kind of want to know about. This is one that's been on my list, of a place that I really want to get to, and that is Phantasialand. So Danny, is Taron better than Maverick? Why don't we just open it up?
let's just bury the hatchet right at the beginning of the show, right? Like you said, we're gonna split this up. We're not gonna do the whole top 10 coaster thing, and this was something I suggested when I first came back. I said, the coasters were great. There were a lot that were surprising, but there's so much to talk about with these parks in addition to the coasters. So rather than just go through the coasters and do everything else, we're going to go park by park, sort of day by day. We're not going to do it in chronological order. We're going to sort of mix it up a little bit because our trip was very bottom heavy. We did a lot of big parks at the end of the trip. Phantasialand, Holiday Park, Europa Park. Those were like 3 of the last 4 parks we did too. So a lot of the big rides and big parks were towards the end. So we're going to mix it up a little bit here. We're going to do, like you said, 2 parks in one show where appropriate. It's probably going to be like 7 shows or so. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, about 7 or 8 shows altogether because, again, we went to 13 parks and 1 fair. So we've got a lot to talk about here. So we are going to start with Phantasialand. And we're not going to ignore the road trip rundown and the predictions I made. We're going to sort of just hit them as we come to them here. So to sort of get that out of the way here, I had 2 coasters from Phantasialand on my top 10 most anticipated steal list. I had Taron at number 3, Black Mamba at number 9. Okay, so let's talk Phantasialand. First off, we got to Phantasialand late in the evening on Tuesday evening. We went there on Wednesday, which was nice because this park does get very crowded. It's close to Cologne. And I had heard this, didn't realize how true it was. Phantasialand is extremely small. Does not take up a whole lot of land at all. In terms of walking from one end of the park to the other, smaller than even a Michigan's Adventure. A very small park, a very dense park. Tons of rides, tons of scenery, tons of theming, tons of stuff crammed into this park. I can't believe they're building a launch flying coaster. We kind of saw the area that it's going into. It's like part indoor, part outdoor. I don't see where this ride is going. I don't see how they're fitting all of this in here. So Fly will certainly be a cool experience, I'm sure, once they get that open. That's great. So we arrived at the Hotel Matamba, which is the African-themed hotel. They have a couple hotels there. They have the Hotel Matamba, which is the African-themed hotel, and then there is the Hotel Ling Bao, which is the Asian-themed hotel, and that is where the park entrance, the hotel guest entrance, is into Phantasialand in the Asian section of the park, which is towards the back. And the Asian section of the park is right next to Klugheim, which is where Taron is located. So, hotel, very, very nice. The rooms are amazing, right? You've got the beds are like the canvas. They're held up like wooden tree logs and twigs. They're log style beds, and they've got like the canvases that come over like you would have out if you were camping, like the bug sheets.
Yeah, like the mosquito nets.
Yeah, but they're honest to goodness like canvas. The two beds were in separate rooms, so there's actual two separate bedrooms, a huge walk-in shower, just immaculate hotel rooms. And our particular hotel room was on the inside of the hotel, so we swung open the nice big window. We had a little log fence there because they don't have screens in the hotel rooms. In Europe, it opens right out into the open air, and we peek our heads out the window, and what can we see? We can see Black Mamba's loop and Zero G roll, which was really, really cool. A nice little teaser to whet the appetite the night before. So we had breakfast and everything. Now, what they've historically done, they did this especially for us. So typically they do 1 hour of hotel guest ERT after the park closes from 7 to 8 o'clock at night. But this year they extended their park hours for all guests until 8 o'clock p.m. So because of that, they don't do, in these summer months, they are not doing the hotel guest ERT at all, which was not planned when they first organized the trip. Originally, we were supposed to get the hotel ERT. So what they did, they actually organized a special ERT for just the coaster crew the first half an hour from 9:30 to 10 o'clock on Taron, which was really, really nice. So we actually got a more exclusive ERT, which enabled us 5 rides on Taron in the first half hour of the day. Interesting thing, park gates open at 9. People can get in line for rides starting at 9 o'clock, and none of the rides open until 10. So we're just riding this ride over and over again. And meanwhile, there's this big long line that's like an hour and a half long just watching us ride the ride right there. And we're going around as we're going through all the paths. We see all these people lined up to ride this ride. Taron, let's get right into Taron here. I was prepared to be disappointed by this ride. I put it at number 3, had been told by many people that it should have been by far the number 1 ride to expect on this trip. Thrilling 32, it's a top 5 ride. It's done very, very well its first couple years. And I always took that with a grain of salt because of the videos we see. We know that sometimes the videos don't always necessarily what the ride actually does. In this case, I will say Taron is a little bit of a mixed bag of what you see on the videos. In many, many parts of the videos you see in the POVs, it does not show the sensation of speed that you have in a lot of the areas of the rides, and it certainly does not do justice to the amount of force going over a lot of the hills and the turns. There is a lot of airtime. There are a lot of good directional changes on this ride. When you're going through the buildings and through the rock formations, there is lots and lots of instances where you get that sensation of speed. Maybe you feel like you're going faster than you actually are. On the other side, there are 2 or 3 spots in videos where you say, looks like it's going just a little slow there. And there are 2 or 3 spots on the ride where the word I like to use for things like this is you feel like you're meandering just a little bit. It's a little bit of trek just to get you to whatever's coming next. And in particular, at the very end of each section of the ride. So you come out of station, you make a right-hand turn, and you pause. There's there's audio going on, and then you launch. The first launch is a little bit slower than the second one. You go through a nice overbank. There's a really nice airtime hill right after the first turn. Arguably the best airtime hill on the ride. You go through a few Maverick I-305 type transition hills where you get that thrower type airtime where you're banking from the left to the right or vice versa, and you get thrown out of your seat through the transition. And then you do just a little bit of like one of those S-turn things, and then there's another turn through a building, and you just start to feel like, okay, we're really slowing down here, and then you hit the second launch. You don't have a whole lot of time. It's maybe a few seconds where you start to feel like this ride's really starting to slow down, and then you take off, and the second launch is outstanding. You really pick up some great speed, really intense launch. It really caught me by surprise. I especially liked sitting on the left-hand side of the train on that second launch because you go around a rock formation, there's a waterfall, and you do get wet on the left-hand side of that train, and there's a nice little head chopper there with the rock formation. Some more crossovers, some fly-throughs, some really good interaction with the queues and all the buildings and whatnot. And then you sort of do this sweeping upward left-hand turn, and you've got, it's very prominent when you look at pictures of the ride. There's these two little airtime hills towards the end, and those do not deliver quite as much airtime as I would have hoped. Those two hills are pretty high up, so you don't hit those with a tremendous amount of speed. There's still good floater airtime, but there's not the intense ejector airtime that we come to see out of a lot of Intamins. I would say that those two hills do not quite deliver quite what you're expecting. However, there are plenty of other spots on the ride that deliver much more than what you are expecting when you first look at this ride. So overall, Taron is an outstanding ride. It sort of sounds like I'm hating on it a little bit, and I'm not, because at the end of the day, I rank it in my top 10. Is it better than Maverick? I can't sit here and confidently say yes. It's close.
You're
it's
up
close.
0.
It's close. It's debatable. And if someone came up to me and said, I like Taron better than Maverick, I don't know if I could put up a huge argument against it. We debated it. We talked about it for most of the day. And at the end of the day, the pacing, the very end of the ride meanders just a little bit before you hit the brake run. Like I said, those two little airtime hills at the end don't have that intense, out-of-control feeling like most of the rest of the ride does. But I will say, I went in with tempered expectations. I did not expect this ride to be a top 10 steel coaster, and it is for me. And we've said for 2 years here in the Thrilling 32 that Taron, we didn't believe that it belonged where it was in the Thrilling 32. I don't know if we ever came out and said that on the air, but you and I talking with one another did not believe that that ride was worthy of being a top 5 Thrilling 32 ride. Top 5 is maybe a little higher than I would put it. Top 10, absolutely. This is a top 10 steel coaster, I think. It is outstanding. And to better compare it to Maverick to me has better pacing. Definitely. It doesn't have the slow spots that Taron has. And Maverick, I would say, is more intense all the way through the ride. I would definitely give Maverick those two things. Theming, Taron by a landslide, no question. Restraints, Taron by a landslide, no question. It really feels like you're sitting on a mock rides coaster. It doesn't feel like you're on a Sky Rush type ride. The restraints are basically like if you've ridden Copperhead Strike, or if you've been to Europe and ridden like a Blue Fire, if you've been to SeaWorld San Diego and ridden Manta, that's the type of seat you're sitting in. And I'm excited for Pantheon because Pantheon looks like it's going to have these trains. Similar to the mock coasters, the chairs are elevated higher above the track itself, unlike Maverick where you're sitting very close to the track. So that distance perhaps accentuates the forces a little bit, even though the ride itself does not look as aggressive. It's got the sensation of being more aggressive because you're moving a greater distance through those transitions. So theming, Taron for sure. Comfort, Taron for sure. So it's really a matter of personal preference. I like rides that go balls to the wall all the way through, and Maverick does that better than Taron. Not by a lot. Taron goes balls to the wall, I would say, for 93, 94% of the ride. It's what, a 2.5 minute ride or so. There's maybe total about 8 seconds where I feel like I should be going faster than I am. And we rode it 5 times in the morning and went back and rode it right at the end of the night, just before 8 o'clock, 2 more times. And it is an outstanding ride. It is one of the best steel coasters that I've ridden. But we always say, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And after riding Taron 7 times and really getting a good feel for everything that ride has to offer, I thought about it. I thought maybe it's better than Maverick. And at the end of the day, I couldn't bring myself to say, yes, this ride is definitely better than Maverick.
Well, and you know, the other thing that Taron's missing is it's missing a drop. That Maverick,
It is.
You have that fantastic first drop, and Taron, you just go right into a launch, and obviously, you know, that's done for space issues. You know, building a lift hill of any size takes up usually more space than doing a launch of whatever. You know, so but Maverick's first drop is really outstanding, and it really sets the pace for the whole ride.
Yes.
When you think about when people first rode Maverick, they're like, oh, it's small. Oh, this is gonna be nothing. And you get on that drop, and it takes you by surprise, and then you're flying from start to finish. Then, and even in the middle, when you stop for the second launch, you're like, oh, what else can they do here? And then you get into a second launch, it's amazing as well, and you finish up that ride. Like you said, balls to the wall. To me, Maverick has all those elements: drop, speed, launch, crazy intensity. Those 2 airtime hills are perfect airtime hills. Both of them give you exactly what you need at exactly the right point in the ride. And the horseshoe roll is just engineered fantastically. You know, like you said, you have to top that somehow. And I, like you said, as much as some people might say Taron is better, you know, it's hard to top a perfect ride. It's hard to top Steel Vengeance, you know, and they kind of did.
And we've always talked about the difference between favorite and best, right? And I have a scale, an 80-point scale. I've talked about it a little bit before, of how I measure best versus favorite, because you can have your sentimental favorites, you can have your Mantas, your Raptors, you know, even if you like a ride like Millennium Force, or, you know, like a wood coaster, Kennywood, you can have your sentimental favorites. But I like to take sort of a more objective look at rides as well. I give Maverick a perfect 80 out of 80. I have my 8 categories where I scale on 1 to 10 are smoothness, forces, pace/speed, drop/launch, rewritability, layout, atmosphere, and length. I give Maverick a perfect 80 there. And when I'm talking about atmosphere, that doesn't necessarily have to mean it has to be themed to the nines, but it has to make sense. Maverick, to me, makes sense. I feel like I'm riding a horse that is trying to throw me off. And it does have some theme elements as well. It doesn't have to be themed to the nines to get a good atmosphere score. That could just be the ride looks really pretty. Millennium Force, not a single theme element to it, but Millennium Force has a great atmosphere about it. You go through some nice area. Parking lot coasters don't get good atmosphere scores. Taron, I give a 79, and I take my 1 point off in the pace and speed category, because there's 2 spots in that ride where I just feel like I want to be going faster. There's never a point on Maverick where I feel like I want to be going faster. I feel like I'm going the correct speed for what I'm doing, for it to be intense, but not painful or unrideable. Mm-hmm. Taron, there are about, like I said, 8 seconds in a 2-minute plus ride where I feel like I wish I was going just a little bit faster. And almost every ride in the world has at least 1 spot like that. And Taron has 2 very small spots where I feel like that. But for me, Taron on my steel coaster list, number 9, if you want a number.
Well, there you go. So
that is higher than Intimidator 305. For those of you who are wondering where I buy 305, that is higher than Millennium Force. and that is higher than Superman at Six Flags New England. So those are the other Intamin rides that you might ask about that a lot of people historically rank higher. I like Taron better than all three of those rides.
Not better than Fahrenheit, though.
Fahrenheit. So that's Taron. That's the big one that everyone wants to know about, right? Let's talk about Phantasialand as a whole, because it is an absolutely stunning park. It is absolutely gorgeous, themed to the absolute nines. By far the most theming I've ever seen in a theme park. It doesn't look real. And that's all. It's almost themed to a fault in that regard, because it's almost not believable. Because when I walk into the Deep in Africa section of Phantasialand, I don't believe that that's what Africa actually looks like, because there's so much of it. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. I've never seen anything like this park. It's absolutely stunning. Almost to a fault, I say that because it is very difficult to navigate, because you've got things going high up in the air everywhere. This park is extremely small, and if you're standing near Black Mamba, Taron is maybe a 3-minute walk away, and I can't see it, but it's right over there. Same thing anywhere else. It is very difficult to navigate the park. The paths aren't really laid out in any real organized fashion. It's not a grid. It's not a hub and spoke. You really do kind of wander around this park until you find it. It was about 1 or 2 o'clock until we kind of got comfortable with all the pathways, and the map was very challenging as well. Some of the ride entrances are not particularly well labeled. Some of them are. We had cut the line passes, which most of the case you go up the exits, and the ride exits are not labeled at all in park. If they're different, if the entrances and exits are not next to each other, they're labeled with a red and green like dot with the number on it on the map. So those were especially difficult to find. Typically people aren't always looking for the ride exits, but that was something that we, sort of had to tackle. Let's talk about the rest of the coasters here. Black Mamba, a wonderful surprise. I had heard from someone who had been there just a few weeks prior to our trip that Black Mamba was very much like Nemesis. And I had Black Mamba number 9 on my Steel anticipated list, and it's going to be number 5 on the trip in the Steel coasters. I was very, very pleased with Black Mamba. And Black Mamba was built kind of in that in-between phase of B&M where, they sort of had a lull where people didn't really like some of the stuff they were building at that point. Some of the floorless coasters that a lot of people don't have nice things to say about. For some reason, a lot of people don't like Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet opened right around that same time. I really like Silver Bullet. I don't know what that says about me, but I was very impressed with how.
What that says about you? You don't know how to judge inverts, because you don't like Raptor either. So,
well, but Black Mamba, I was very impressed and surprised with the intensity of it, because some people said it was kind of a nothing ride. I thought it was very intense. I thought it was very strong. The sensation of speed is absolutely outstanding. It's got more near misses and more close quarters than Nemesis does. Now, I still think Nemesis is a slightly better ride. I enjoyed it more. I've got the sentimental bug for Nemesis again because it was a milestone. But Black Mamba, I thought, did everything very, very well. And was very, very intense, very re-rideable, very smooth for a mid-2000s B&M. Some of those, once you get to that 12, 15-year mark, they start to shake a little bit. This one, absolutely not. Tip-top shape. The theming, again, is outstanding surrounding it. Going through the giant adobe structure and the lift hill was outstanding. The entire station is like tribal, where it's got like spears and all sorts of sharp wooden objects. It just absolutely wonderful, this ride, and very, very impressed and exceeded my expectation. And it's a good ride too. You've got a couple corkscrews. We were taking pictures in there, and we could see the loop and the zero G, which are one right after another, and then the one corkscrew's off to the side. And I remember at one point sort of going like this, and it said, the other corkscrew's around here somewhere. I can't see it. I know it's here, but I can't see it, but I know it's there. And then after it does the inversions, it does a lot of helixes, tight turns, and going through tunnels and near misses and by rocks and everything every step of the way. This is the way to do a heavily themed invert. This is an example of you don't need bigger to be better. I think, and that's a very common theme with this park. Other good coasters, Winja, Force and Fear, they're twin, well not twin, but they're dual Mautazuna spinning coasters, indoor. A lot of surprises on these. I won't spoil them, but there are a lot of tricks that this coaster does. Just a lot of weird things going on, some audio. I'll divulge it here. I know you're not one to really stay away from spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled about Winja, say you're going to Phantasialand next couple of years, skip ahead like a minute. So each of these tracks have, it's an elevator lift hill, right? And as you're going up the elevator lift hill, the track tilts a la Gringotts, and then you drop off that way. Then you do the spinning part. There is a part in the middle of each ride, and we liked the Fear side a little bit better than the Force side. Had a couple bigger drops, and the indoor section was a little bit cooler. It has a part where you come to a brake run, and then the track tilts to the side, and then you connect to the rest of the ride, and then you drop into the indoor section while you're spinning and doing some drops. And then the Fear side has a part where you come into the brake run, and as you come on to the flat section of track, the whole piece of track drops and then raises back up while you're rolling along it, and then you roll into the station.
What?
It's totally cool. It was the coolest thing, because you come into the breaker and you're like, wow, that was a lot of fun. Whoa! And then you raise back up, and then you roll right in. It was really, really strange. Winja is really a pleasant surprise. Then you have the Family Boomerang, which is incredibly well themed. Last in terms of the coasters, I believe, is the Mine Train, Colorado Adventure. And this, for me, ended up being number 15 on the Steel Coaster list. This thing is unbelievable. This thing is unreal. It's got 4 ejector airtime hills on it. It's got 3 lift hills. It's, again, themed absolutely incredible. It interacts with Chiapas, which is their forwards backwards log flume, in that area of the park.
What type of cars does it have? Does it have the Adventure Express cars or the older?
No, so it is a Vekoma mine train. So think Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Okay.
You're in, and again, the ejector airtime is downright scary on this ride, because when you're sitting in the back, there's some big drops on this ride, and you get a lot of whippy ejector airtime in the back of this ride. And again, think Big Thunder Mountain, no seatbelt, just that little bar that only comes down as far as the biggest person in your row.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting with a larger person, hang on tight. I did not ride with hands up on this ride for the entire ride and any of our rides, and we rode it 3 or 4 times. I did not have the guts to not hold on to that little grab rail in the front on a couple of those drops, because and some of the drops go down into tunnels, and at the bottom of the drops you're turning, so you're being thrown to the side and you're not being held in by anything whatsoever. It's by far the most ridiculous mine train I've ever ridden. Absolutely awesome. A top 100 coaster for sure. Overall, 21 coasters on the steel side of things making my top 100, and this was one of them. Colorado Adventure was a lot of fun. Other than that, they had the VR coaster Crazy Bats, which is probably the longest coaster I've ever ridden. It's got 3 lift hills.
Oh.
It's 4 minutes long. It's got 4 minutes long. The VR is animated bats that are moving around in a mansion, and they're wreaking havoc among the mansion. It's not like scary bats. It's like cutesy animated anthropomorphic bats. It was super adorable. Really fun. They're billing it as the world's best VR coaster. I won't argue against that claim. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't know how you measure that, but I really enjoyed it. It was a great time. Would have ridden it twice if it wasn't an hour-long wait all day, obviously, but a lot of fun there. Non-coasters, their Shooter ride, which has scored very, very well in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards over the years. Mouse Chocolat is, again, super super adorable. Imagine Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin, and your little guns are like the little pastry squeezers. And then instead of pulling a trigger, you have like the ball on a rope that you have to pull like this to fire. And you're sitting back to back, and you rotate to face each of the screens. So you're sitting next to one other person, and one person has white chocolate and the other person has the regular brown chocolate. So that's how you can tell your blasters apart. And there's like 3 cars and 3 sets of screens. So you're only battling against one other person, and you're basically shooting the mice in the bakery and the pastry factory with your pastry icing, with your icing, whatever color icing you have. And they're pumping in the sense of chocolate. The whole ride smells like chocolate. We elected to ride this ride right before lunch, and that was the best move we made all day because we were extremely hungry after riding this ride a couple times. Boy, we had a lot of fun with this ride. Super, super cute. Lots of fun. And my shoulder was ready to fall off because it's really, really long. And, you know, doing the pulling motion with your whole arm as opposed to just the trigger motion with your finger. Usually it's your wrist that's hurting after those shooting rides. It's your whole arm.
Well, you should do, if you ever get a chance to go back to Legoland, they have the Ninjago ride, and you got to do the karate chops.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Yes, I imagine that this is very much the same. They have lots of dark rides here too. They have a Haunted Mansion style dark ride that's in the Asian section of the park. That's really cool. Chiapas, which is in the Mexico area, is their forward backwards log flume. Boy, is that ride a lot of fun. You know, I'm not one to really go. I'm not too particular about my water rides. I don't really rank my water rides or my log flumes, but this is certainly one of the best log flumes out there. I mean, people like talk about Splash Mountain and Timber Mountain Log Ride over here in the States. This is as good as any of those for sure. There's a weird part in the middle where it's got like rainbow laser and disco lights where you're inside. It's like a rainbow rave. I don't know what the hell was going on in there, but it was super fun, super cool. Chiapas was a lot of fun. You don't get too wet, and it's got a nice airtime hill there. So Chiapas was a lot of fun. They do have a Vekoma Madhouse as well, which is themed to like it's inside of one of their Asian pagodas, which is really, really cool. They have Talakan, which is the top spin you see a bunch of pictures of. It's got the fire and the water, really, really well themed. Just beautiful. Even the swings ride out in front has the fountains that sort of go up and down with the swings. Just lots of little details, flowers, plants, just a gorgeous park all the way around. There's more. Oh, the drop tower. How can I forget about the drop tower? It's fairly new. It's called Mystery Castle. It's an indoor drop tower. So imagine this. You've got a big, say, 150-foot tall castle tower. So it's octagonal, right? And historically, if you go to like a Six Flags park, you see the cars on the outside of the tower going around. This one is the opposite. All the cars are on the inside of the castle tower facing one another. So you're facing one another, you're all going up and down together, and you've got theming. There's the story about the wizard who's protecting the castle, and it's the mystery castle, and you've got he's like powering up his device in the middle of the room, and that's what causes you to go up, and then you fall, and you go up and fall, and there's lights and sounds and music and everything. Really, really fun, really, really thrilling as well. A little bit of Tower of Terror type stuff going on with this ride. Not quite on that scale and not quite that level of thrill. But it was really just your standard Intamin style drop ride, like the first generation ones that you would find at, Canada's Wonderland has one. The Six Flags America, I think, has one. Those older style ones, just put on the inside of a building and theming, and it was really, really simple but very, very well done. Phantasialand as a whole, just a really, really impressive park, and I would say probably one of the top 2 or 3 parks on the entire trip. We've heard very, very good things about it. top to bottom for many years now, and it's gotten a lot of praise in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards. I think it was top 3 or 4 in terms of favorite amusement / theme park for the last couple years, especially now that we've started to get a lot of people who've been to Europe and a lot of people who are over there in Europe. And Phantasialand is deserving of a lot of the praise that it gets. The food was great. The staff was very good in terms of operations. They were very accommodating. They were very friendly. Just cannot say enough good things about Phantasialand. I had even heard that because they're so close to the city and because of how crowded the park gets, and they get a lot of the city clientele, that it tends to be very dirty and there tends to be trash everywhere. I didn't experience that. I did not experience trash laying all over the place. I didn't experience overly rude guests. Maybe I'm just spoiled because they're not rude guests over there aren't as rude as the ones over here on the East Coast. Maybe that's what it was. But I did not experience a lot of the negative that I had heard to expect from this park. I don't really have a bad thing to say about this park. I really, really don't. I enjoyed it quite a great bit, and would certainly put it towards the top of the list of parks to revisit when we go back.
Well, that's exciting because, like I said before, Phantasialand has always been, in my top 5 parks that I want to get to. Probably in the top 3 parks I want to get to. So it's exciting that your experience actually lined up with all of that. And you didn't have any problems getting everything done in one day, right? I know you had, the special privileges, but
right. We had the quick pass there, which they don't have an unlimited one. It's good for basically 4 rides. So one person can use it on 4 rides. Or you can use it for 4 people on 1 ride. They ended up giving us 2 of those, and then I think we bought 1 extra one. For a ticket of 4 rides, it was €15. So and you can buy as many as you want. So if you want to buy 12 skip the line passes, you're looking at €45. So it's affordable even if you want to go there and buy it. They have a few other small dark rides. They have the boat ride, which is sort of like a Great Movie Ride style ride, the Hollywood Tour. So if you missed the Great Movie Ride, you've got a little bit of experience there. They have Big King Kong animatronic at the end. Maybe better than the one Universal has. I don't know, but some fun there. They had a Jaws room in there, which was kind of cool. We're just getting into some of the little stuff now, but I have the website up here, just kind of going through stuff to make sure I didn't forget anything. I think we really hit on most of the big stuff, and certainly all the stuff that people want to know. In terms of rides, attractions, the coasters for sure. And again, I want to stress that I had just 2 little negative takeaways about Taron, and do not let that fool you. Like I said, Taron is the real deal. It is deserving of all the praise it gets. It is absolutely one of the best steel coasters in the world, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion. I think it's deserving of being in the top 10 of the Thrilling 32. And I'll be quite honest with you, listening to what other people on the trip had to say about it, I think a lot of people also share that opinion. So, newsflash, Taron's not going anywhere as far as the Thrilling 32 is concerned. It's going to continue to do very, very well.
Well, folks, that will wrap us up here on our first episode of Danny's big European adventure. So we'll have some other episodes coming up later on. We're going to space them out a little bit because we do have some big news coming up. We still have a few announcements left this year. Hopefully get some big news coming up here. So as always, thank you for joining us here on COASTER-net Uncut. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk, hailing from the Raptor Universe Studios.
And I'm Danny Miller, coming from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Warriors.
See you next time, guys. Thanks.